People go missing in national parks, that happens. People die in the wilderness, that happens too. But there's one place inside Yosemite National Park where the rules seems to change. A place where entire groups vanish, where people collapse without warning, where survivors describe whispers, shadows, and the feeling of being deliberately targeted. A place so strange that it doesn't even appear in the famous missing 411 cases of David Paulides. Today we are talking about a location rangers warn visitors never to enter alone: the Bermuda Triangle of Yosemite National Park. The Yosemite National Park covers an area of approximately 3,000 square kilometers. A vast area, expansive, remote, difficult to navigate. Within this park, there is one place that clearly stands out from all the others. It is an area where far more people have disappeared than you would expect. A place where people have suddenly died without any clear reason. Reporters speak of whispers in the woods, dark shapes moving between the trees, and what seems to be planned, targeted attacks. Today we are once again talking about Yosemite National Park. I have already dealt with this area in the past, but this time we are focusing on a place that holds a special status even within the park itself. This place carries an unofficial nickname, a name that already suggests that something is not right here: the Bermuda Triangle of Yosemite National Park. The place in question is Tenaya Canyon, sometimes also referred to as Tenaya Valley. But here's what makes this truly unusual. Strangely, not a single case from this area appears in the well-known Missing 411 books compiled by David Paulides. So why is that? The incidents in Tenaya Canyon differ significantly from what is known from the 411 cases. Here entire groups often disappear, not just individuals. Those who vanish never return. There are no witnesses, no traces, and above all, there's something here that is not typical of the 411 cases: clear memories, detailed accounts from people who survived. While memory gaps are typical in the 411 cases, here it's exactly the opposite. And many of these strange incidents are said to have their origins in the year 1850. At that time, the area belonged to the Ohlone tribe. The Ohlone were considered a very peaceful Native American tribe. They lived in isolation, without major conflicts with other tribes, partly because they lived relatively secluded in this region. But they did something the white settlers saw as unforgivable, yet from the Ohlone perspective it was entirely logical. They took livestock. The Ohlone said, "This is our land. There are animals on this land, and we have always hunted animals here. If animals stand on our land, we hunt them." To them it made no difference whether the animals were wild game or farm animals owned by settlers. To the white migrants, however, the difference meant everything. At some point, the migrants decided to relocate the Ohlone to a reservation. Because the tribe was considered peaceful, it was assumed the relocation would proceed without difficulty. If necessary, it would be enforced by force. One morning in the year 1850, a captain named John Bowling rode into the Ohlone village with a group of armed men. They were to force the tribe to move toward Fresno and live there on a reservation. But the Ohlone resisted. A confrontation broke out. During this confrontation, the settlers shot and killed the son of the tribe's chief. The chief's name was Tenaya. The Tenaya Canyon is named after him. When Tenaya learned of the death of his only son, something inside him broke. He withdrew with what remained of his tribe into Tenaya Canyon. He was old, broken, and close to death. Shortly before his end, he is said to have spoken, words that have been passed down to this day. He said, "Kill me, Captain. Kill me as you killed my son. How would you kill my people if they came to you? You would kill my entire people if you had the power. You have made me sorrowful. My life has become dark. You have killed the child of my heart. Why not the father? You may kill me, Captain, but you shall not live in peace. I will not leave my home. I will live with the spirits beneath the rocks, in the waterfalls, in the rivers, in the wind. Wherever you go, I will be with you. You will not see me, but you will fear the spirit of the old chief, and will grow cold." This is how it has been passed down. And it is said that not only Tenaya spoke this curse. One by one, as the remaining members of the tribe sensed that their time had come, they too are said to have cursed this part of the land. John Bowling continued to drive the remaining Ohlone away, until none of them remained in the Yosemite area. Later, Bowling became Sheriff of Mariposa. 14 years after these events, in 1864, he died of tuberculosis. He left behind a wife and 2 children. Since that time, reports of strange incidents in Tenaya Canyon have increased. Since 1980, around 60 people are said to have disappeared in Tenaya Valley, despite intensive search efforts, despite ground teams, despite helicopters. None of them were ever found. Another difference compared to the 411 cases. Here, it is not only individuals who disappear, sometimes entire groups vanish, and at the same time, there are people who have returned alive and who were able to describe in great detail what they experienced. In this area, sudden deaths occur again and again. People simply collapse without warning, without any apparent cause. These are not elderly or sick individuals, but young to middle-aged people, healthy, physical, capable. This too is said to happen far more often than in the rest of Yosemite Park. In 2012, several free climbers were in the Tenaya Canyon. 3 of them climbed a rock face without any safety equipment. One of them reached the plateau first. The other 2 were still midway up to the wall, looking up at him. Just as he swung his leg over the edge, a black shadow appeared above him, seemingly out of nowhere. Seconds later, he fell. Not straight down, but as if something had pushed him away from the wall. He did not stand a chance. He fell to his death. Such reports go back a long way. One of the early stories comes from John Muir. He wrote about climbing a mountain, stopping to take notes, and then turning around. In front of him, he saw a dark shadow figure. He suddenly felt something push him. He fell and rolled down the slope. Then he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he was lying in a bush. Directly behind it, the terrain dropped away several hundred meters. Another incident dates back to 2014. 3 young men wanted to go on a multi-day hike. On the very first evening, they set up a camp, tent, fire, and rest. But during the night, they heard whispering, at first from a distance, then directly around them. They saw shadow figures between the trees, with glowing red eyes. One of the figures broke away from the others and flew straight into the fire. The flame shot several meters into the air. The men panicked and ran, but the figures were faster than they were. They felt themselves being pushed again and again, knocked hard to the ground. Every time they managed to get back on their feet and start running, they were shoved down again just seconds later. This continued until they were completely exhausted. Only then did it stop. Their campsite was destroyed, the tent and their gear were ripped apart. The content of their backpacks were spread across the ground. They were later found by park rangers. The incident was officially recorded as a bear attack. Tenaya Canyon is hard to reach. It takes more than 10 miles of rough ground to get there. Warning signs are posted everywhere. This is a harsh and dangerous place. It does not forgive mistakes, that explain some things, but not everything. And this is exactly what makes this place so difficult to understand, because in theory there should be explanations, there should be patterns. One should be able to say, this place is dangerous because the terrain is dangerous. People die here because they make mistakes, but that does not quite fit. Because many of those affected were experienced, they knew the terrain, they knew what they were getting into. And yet, something happened that they themselves could not explain. Again and again, it is reported that the atmosphere suddenly changed, abruptly, without warning. They said the forest suddenly went quiet, that the wind stopped, that it felt as if someone was watching them. And almost always the same feelings appear. The sense of not being alone, not in the simple way of thinking, someone else is here, but in a different way. As if there is someone there. Something you cannot see, cannot touch, but still feel. Many people report a strong urge to turn around, or to stop walking, or to leave the path they had planned to follow. Others describe a sudden fear, not the normal fear you might feel in the wilderness, but a deep, unclear fear, without any obvious reason, and again there's the whispering. Not loud shooting, not screams, but voices that are hard to locate. Sometimes they seem very close, sometimes they come from the forest, and sometimes they seem to come from inside your own head. And this is where things become difficult, because at this point the line begins to blur between imagination and reality, between fear and what was actually observed, between coincidence and intention. In the 411 cases, it is usually the opposite. There, people often disappear in areas that Native Americans avoided for centuries, places said to have been inhabited by demons or evil spirits, or beings best left undisturbed. These places often were names later translated by white settlers, names that came to mean Devil's Mountain, Devil's Ridge, Demon Hill, or Lair of Evil. These translations were meant to show that these places were considered dangerous, as cursed, as places where one does not camp, does not hunt, does not linger. There were warnings. Warning passed down through generations, and yet, over time, those warnings were forgotten or ignored, and people kept going back. So what do you think about this case? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.